Good afternoon. Hello. So I know we don't have a full room, but we do have a full online room. We're actually doing a webinar today, which is why I'm going to be speaking loudly into the microphone. First, I'll just quickly introduce myself. Hello, I'm Naomi Zook-Fisher with Early Childhood Development Programs here at United Way. Welcome. We are going to get started. It's 5 after, and I want to thank you all for joining us on the webinar, and for those of you in front of me, thanks for schlepping and trying to find parking during the week. It's really much appreciated. So we're here today to talk about the Education Annual Reports. Just want to make sure everyone in the room and on the webinar are here for that. If not, please feel free to exit. We are going to quickly do some introductions. First, I just wanted to say that Andrea Fursten, Director of Education and Jobs, really wanted to be here today and would normally be welcoming you to this session today. Unfortunately, she had a funeral to attend to. But she does extend her welcome, and please do feel free to reach out to her. Now we have a big group of supporters here within United Way who are going to help everyone through the annual reporting process. Before I ask each United Way person to stand and introduce themselves, I'm going to single out one person, and that's Tulani Jwaku, who's standing in the back. He is going to be managing our foundational reading skills portfolio and is just starting week 3. So feel free to introduce yourself to him and get to know him. If you have specific questions about your foundational reading skills grant annual report, please feel free to reach out to actually Rachel or myself in the meantime, and we'll be working with Tulani as he gets up to speed. So could I have other United Way staff just stand quickly and say your name and role?
Elliot Erickson, Operations Manager here at United Way. If you have any technical questions, please let me know.
Elliot is also relatively new to United Way, so feel free to send him all the hard questions. And hi, I'm Rachel Oberkhauser. I work with our Youth Gain Experiences to Learn, Lead, and Succeed, or formerly known as Out of School Time. So happy you're all here.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Belfi. I'm an AmeriCorps Vista working career academies. I'm also new, so I'm here learning as well. So if you have any hard questions, bring it to Elliot again. So.
Great, thank you. So quickly, I'll just also mention a few logistical things. If you need to use the restrooms, they're out this door and right behind me. There's also coffee, tea, and water in the back of the room, so help yourself. And then, like I said a number of times, this is going to be, it is a webinar, and we're actually recording it. So when we go through questions and answers, please wait to have a microphone in front of you so that everyone in the internet can hear your questions and answers as well. And lastly, we wanted to give you a few quick updates that are timely. First, just by show of hands, did anyone attend our Action Day at Twin Stadium earlier in the month? Okay, well, thanks to those who did. It was our first time doing a single location for what we call speed volunteering, and we had close to 3,000 individuals attend on August 18th at the Twin Stadium. It was a lot of fun, so I encourage you to look out for that event next year when it happens. Also, wanted to let you know that today we're going to be talking about the Helping Children Succeed, otherwise known as Education Annual Report. If you have a grant in the safety net area, those annual reports will be happening in the February 2017 timeframe. Just know that you're not on the hook to be doing that annual report at this time. Additionally, I wanted to let you know that we're currently in the middle of the jobs and training request for proposal process. If you didn't know and want to learn more, you can check our website. The application and the concept paper are on there. They're talking about the parameters for that grant area. And that grant area or the application process will be closing on September 8th at 3 p.m. Lastly, we're actually going to be hosting the second of a 2-session training on financial dashboards, and that's being run by Clifton Larson Allen, which is an organization or company that we're contracting with to do that dashboards training. It's actually going to be recorded, and so There will be a shortened version of that training that we'll be posting later to our website. I just wanted to let you know about that. So any questions before I move into the heart of our discussion about any of those updates? Okay, great. So just for quick review, the goal of today is really to give you an overview about the annual reports process for education. So I'll be talking very briefly about the why, the when, and the what of annual reporting. Then Rachel Oberghauser is going to come up here and talk about the how in terms of content, what we're actually looking for and how you should be approaching the questions that we pose in the actual annual reports. And then we're going to show a brief video, this time it's going to be a video, of the technological how. And we're going to be doing a demonstration of the link, and that's where you're going to be actually inputting all the data for the annual reports. And lastly, we'll just have some time for questions and answers. But I do also just want to say, hello? I do want to encourage you to ask questions as we go along, although there will be a Q&A section or a section at the end. Please do feel free to raise your hand and we'll answer as we go. So by show of hands, for how many of you is this the first time you're at a training on annual reports for United Way? Okay, so we have a number of people, which it's the first time. Thank you, and hopefully this will be informative. For those of you who have been here before, we hope that repetition is the mother of learning and that you'll still get something out of it. But briefly, for those of you who are rather new to our annual reports, the reports is for us a multifaceted tool. It's a really good way for us to communicate with the organizations and understand how the program's been progressing over the year. The information that you provide us on an annual basis gets used in a lot of different ways. One, it's used as a monitoring or due diligence tool for us as a part of our stewardship efforts with the grants. We also look at the information to better inform program managers and executive level staff here about how programs are going on individually and what you're learning as a cohort. We also use or aggregate the data to understand, are there themes and learnings that are happening across the sector that we should know about and advocate for along with our stakeholders, donors, and the larger community. And then we're also often taking that with our donors to share the good work that you're doing and to try and raise additional dollars and or volunteer support the effort work on together. Finally, annual reports are a requirement of the United Way grant, and it is something that we look at in terms of the RFP process moving forward. Any questions about what we do with those annual reports? I will say, as you are filling it out, you'll understand this as Rachel goes through it. We do look at every point of data and are reading through all of it. We're often looking at the success stories, and Rachel will talk about this later. The success stories we're often sharing in many different channels for marketing and communications around your individual work and then United Way's impact in the community at large. So we really do appreciate all of the information that you send. So in terms of the when, the annual reports application is currently launched. If you haven't been into the system, we encourage you to look at it as soon as possible. And again, there's going to be a video at the end that's going to show you how to do that. We'll be posting our forms later on the website. Staff that would like to hear everything that's reviewed, please direct them to that location. So the application, as I said, or the annual report application has been launched. Due on 14th at 4 p.m. We strongly encourage you to enter in your data as you go and not wait, because as you all know, there are always glitches at the end, or at least I know with the federal grant that I get. So we do encourage to go into that system early and often and save as you go. In terms of this process, the program managers will be reviewing all of the annual reports. And should there be any questions or clarifications that are needed, we'll reach out, email, or by phone. And then we're going to try and wrap up the review and approval of all the annual reports by November 18th. And before I kick this back to Rachel Oberghauser, just wanted to talk to you a little bit about, so what you are going to be reporting on is programming work that occurred between July 1st, 2015 and June 30th, 2016. So it's work accomplished during the first grant year for the grant. I see some nit, so I'd love for people to raise hands if they have questions about that. In terms of what you're going to be reporting, and again, Rachel's going to walk through this more specifically in the link, we're going to be looking for you to indicate your agency name, your program name. We're also going to be report on outcome indicators that are specific to your program, and those should look in terms of the type of indicators the same as you had proposed in your application. We'll also have very few narrative questions that we encourage you to complete. And then we'll have a section on budget, demographics, delivery locations. And again, Rachel's going to speak to that. What's not included as part of this particular annual reports process is the financial reporting. And so if you have questions about what's required of your agency for financial reporting, please do feel free to talk to any one of us afterwards. I'll just say quickly, there are no financial reporting requirements at this time. We just wrapped up a financial reporting due date on July 29th for agencies that have their fiscal years ending September and December. If you are an agency with a fiscal year ending March, April, May, or June, those financial reports and the requirements will be due end of January 2017. Again, for more detailed information, come see us afterwards, or you can definitely shoot us an email. So before Rachel joins me, are there any questions about the what, when, and why? Okay, great, well, thank you.
Great, thanks, Naomi. All right, so here comes the exciting part. We're going to go step by step through some of these questions. I'm just going to pull up a sample report. And the video that we show after I'm done going through this, it'll tell you how to get to this point. But so for right now, we're in that the reporting piece. So I'm going to scroll down here, and what you'll first be asked to do is to select your agency name from a drop-down menu. So we're just randomly picking on Eastside Neighborhood Services. And then if you have more than one grant within the Education or Helping Children Succeed RFP, you'll see your different programs here. So, and what this will do then is if you choose your Learn, Lead, and Succeed grant, it'll populate the Learn, Lead, and Succeed outcome indicators. If you do your early childhood ones, it'll populate your early childhood ones. So that's how that goes, and then create report. So this first section is really just program contact information. We do ask that you fill out a phone number and email address in case we do have questions or follow-up. The first just brief question is to provide a description of your funded program, think elevator speech. This is really just a refresher for us to get to re-know your program, and allows us to easily identify a program. We have a number of folks that just want a brief description of what our programs do, and so this allows us to do that. The second question down is how, if at all, has the program model or implementation changed over the last year, and what was the rationale for the changes and the outcome? And so this isn't, we're not looking for small detailed pieces, we're really looking for something a little bit larger. Maybe you added an extra site for program, or maybe you switched sites. Or maybe you are serving a lot more children than you were previously. So implementation changes around kind of those pieces. Maybe a new curriculum you're putting into place. So those are the types of things we're looking for. And then just want to better understand maybe why you chose that curriculum, for instance. And you know, if you haven't implemented yet, we'll look forward to hearing what that looks like. So I'm just going to pause real quick. Does anybody have any questions? Great. Oh, we do have, Tulani, we do have a question with Julie over here.
Thank you. So you said with the question about how the program model or implementation has changed that you want to hear about big changes. And what if there haven't been any big changes then? Do you want to hear about more minute changes?
No, you can just say no implementation changes here.
Okay.
Thanks for the question. Feel free to interrupt me too if you have a question along the way. Naomi, do you have one?
I might just add a little bit to that answer and just say, tell us whatever changes you think are relevant to your performance. So it might seem small to you, but if you think it's going to impact your outcomes in some way or tell a different story, then do feel free to use that space. So it's up to your discretion to share with us what changes. So if you have staff changes at the direct program level, which you don't think is necessarily big, but you saw maybe a small drop off in terms of your service outcomes because of that, that's something we would want to understand.
Great, thank you. The next section is the program-specific indicators. And I'm not going to go through each goal area specifically because these are going to look different depending on the goal area that you're in. But I do just want to call out a couple pieces around here. And for those of you that have been funded by United Way in the past, this is a little different. So the first piece will ask you, what's the total number of program participants? And what we're asking here is, what's the total number of program participants that walk through your door? And I know some of you calculate that number differently. So if you have questions around that, talk to your program manager, but we're really just looking to see what's the total number of young people or children or babies that walk through your door. And then out of that larger number, how many of those are at 200% poverty or below? And I'm sure most of you know this in terms of other grant reporting, but the federal poverty guideline for a family of 4 this year in 2016 is $48,500 for a family of 4. That's at the 200% federal poverty guideline. I know many of you also in the education sphere use free and reduced lunch. That's great as well. Tulani, we have another question here in the back. Kathy?
Hi, our program has 3 registered dates. So when you talk about total number of program participants, do you want the unduplicated? Because some of our families during the school year will also register in the summer. So our program participant number would be larger, but they would be duplicate because they would be in the school year and some of them in the summer. So
great question. We are looking for unduplicated. Yes. We've got another question up here, Naomi. Thank you.
This year with the youth programming, the focus is on 6th grade to 12th. And so if we serve younger youth, do you want those included in this? Or do you want just 6th through 12th graders for the overall program participants?
Great question. Again, just be the 6th through 12th for the learning seed area. So whatever your goal area is, so for foundational reading skills, that's pre-K through 5th grade. We'd be looking for those numbers in that. And then for early childhood, it'd be 0 to 5. And your adults, the families as well. Yeah, great question. And some of the reasons why we asked them this is another context piece for us. I know some of you, particularly in the early childhood sphere, you do an intentional mixed income model, and that's part of what you do and part of what you think is important. So we just want to be able to see that in terms of numbers. And then the following here is that specific outcomes that will be related to your goal area. Oh, do we have another question?
Sorry, Rachel, that brought up my question. So in our early childhood model, we had that mixed model. So you want us, the number of participants, our total program participants would include both of those, the middle income and the lower income, and then the second one, of course, would be not? Is that how you want it? Okay.
Yep, that's correct. Thank you.
Thanks.
So these are your outcome indicators, which for the Learn, Lead, and Succeed folks, these will look familiar. We won't go through the specific indicators, so if you have questions on how to report on your indicators, please talk with your specific program manager. We want to give Tulani a little bit of a break since he's on week 3, So if you're in the foundational reading skills area, you can try to tap Naomi or I. Otherwise, we do have Andrea's email on here as well. So you can talk to either Naomi or I or Andrea, include Tulani on that, and we'll get your question answered. What I do want to call out, though, is that what you'll be doing is this number. So let's say you have 100 total program participants that walk through your door last year, and 75 of them were at 200% poverty or below. This number right here, the 75, will become your denominator for the rest of these indicators. For the Learn, Lead, and Succeed folks, you know that there's a little, another step of going to the bottom one and getting your program attendance, and that one becomes your program denominator for your outcomes. So I can go through that specifically if you have questions for the Learn, Lead, and Succeed folks, because that one's a little unique. But for foundational reading skills and for early childhood, the number of participants at or below 200% poverty line, that's going to be your denominator for the remainder. We've got another question over here.
Okay, for 612, I thought the 30 days of attendance also became part of the denominator. Is that now an outcome instead, or is that part of the denominator too? That is part of the denominator. So I think when we talked about this in site visits, it is a little oddly shaped, so you're going to have to scroll down to 3.2. So that's an outcome indicator. So out of the total number of youth, so let's go back to my other example where 75 youth were at 200% poverty or below. Then how many of the 75 youth participated in programming at least 30 days? So let's say that's 70. So you put 70 in here, and then that 70 becomes your denominator for the rest of the indicators. So that is just unique to Learn, Lead, and Succeed. For the rest of you folks, it's the 200% poverty is the one that you need to focus on. I know that's complicated, and I've seen some furrowed brows. Any other questions on that piece? Okay. If stuff comes up, please do reach out to your program manager, and we're happy to walk you through this. I do want to say the other piece about why we're separating this out is this is a huge directive of our board of directors. They want to ensure that our donors' dollars are going to those most impacted by poverty. And so that's why we're calling out the 200% poverty or below, and then basing those outcome indicators on that particular population. So, okay. Just one other thing I want to say about this section is for each of these, we're looking for numbers. We're not looking for percentages. So we're looking for the actual number of babies, children, youth that hit that indicator. So for some of you that have done annual reports in the past, this is different. The other piece I want to say is that we'll be comparing this actual to what you proposed in your grant. And for some of you, you did alter your numbers when we did a program summary form after you were notified of that you received the grant. So we'll be comparing it to those revised numbers. And those you can access on the link, which the video will show you where those are. And if you have questions on where that is, happy to help you find that. The last thing I do want to say is that there's a text box here under each indicator. And so if for whatever reason, let's say this number was 70, and in your target you set it at 150, we want to understand kind of what the reasoning for that number is, and that could be a variety of things. That could be, you know, we weren't able to recruit as much as we were in previous years. We were down a site than what we thought. So help us provide some context in those text boxes, whether you either shot above your target or shot below your target. Because you might have received an extra grant that we didn't know about, and that's why you're serving twice the number of kids that you were previously. So again, the context is really what helps us. We can look at the numbers, but if we don't have that context, it doesn't really help us. Any questions on that piece? We've got one back here.
If we do foresee we might be a little low in numbers, but we have maybe like additional survey tools that we've been gathering data through that we didn't include in our original evaluation methods, would you want us to talk to you ahead of time, and if it's approved, add those in, or do you just want us to stick with the original like evaluation tools?
Yeah, I would say if you're going to switch your evaluation tool, definitely talk to your specific program manager about that. I think for right now, if you're thinking, I would stick to your original one, and you can always in the text box certainly add, you know, from this particular extra survey we did, we learned X. But I would encourage you to, we can have a conversation so I can get a little bit more context around if that makes sense to have you use that other evaluation tools. Yeah, great question. All right. So I'm going to skip past the outcome indicators. I will call out, you know, for some of you, fill out an optional outcome when you filled out your proposal. So, you know, if you're still collecting that data, we'd love to hear about how you're doing. If not, no worries. That's what optional means. You'll also see the save button. Tom will talk about this, so just make sure to save frequently. And we've got a question, I think, from the webinar folks.
Yes, we have a question from the webinar. It goes as such. If we have mixed funding for a program, do we report only on the students assigned to the United Way funding, or also the individuals who would be receiving the indirect benefit of being in the program, but not necessarily with United Way funding? Do you want to answer that, or should I?
I think I would probably need a little bit more context to give a good answer. Folks, I know, do it differently, where they'll give a specific site, and this is a United Way site, where other folks have an entire program, and United Way is a portion of that program. So it might just be helpful to hear a little bit more about how they set it up, and then they might want to have a conversation with their program manager. But what would you add, Naomi?
I think that's a good answer. I would say if your program is receiving funding from multiple funders and is serving all children, and United Way is not only interested generally in seeing the performance of students that are funded by United Way funding. We understand that to make your programs work, you're probably grading a number of different funding sources, but Rachel, your point is also very valid. There are certain programs that use United Way funding for specific locations. In those cases, those are going to be different answers. So contacting a program manager is a good starting point.
Great question. Okay, so we're going to move on to this is the narrative section. These are newer questions, so if you've filled out an annual report in the past, you'll notice that these look different than they did in the past. There's 4 narrative questions, so I'm just going to go one by one and talk a little bit about what we're looking for. So this first one is, please describe any external and environmental trends, factors that influence your participants, and any new practices that you have implemented in response to these emerging trends. So just an example, we know that a program rates environment context influences how you're programming. And I know some of you know shooting influenced how your young people were processing that tragedy, and you change your summer programming. And so things like that are out of your control, that are happening in our community, are helpful to understand how they're affecting your young people or your families, and how you're responding to that. A few years ago, bullying was a huge thing that seemed to be spiking and that was a huge piece that a lot of out-of-school programs were responding to and thinking about how they shift their program. An early childhood example.
I think one might have to do with funding. So at the state level for reimbursements from the state for CCAP, there was some kind of a reduction in the number of lessons that a child would be allowed before they would lose their CCAP authorization. So there was a greater churn in children and families who were going through programs that greatly impacted the numbers. And impacted programming and outcomes as well. So that was very important. Luckily, that has since changed. So,
yeah. So does that make sense? These are larger things. They may be happening within your organization. They may be happening in your community, on the street that programming takes place, may be happening at the policy level. Whenever you see that is somehow influencing your program, in whatever way, it could be a positive way, it could be a negative way, we want to help understand that because we have the opportunity to sit at different tables and to communicate that. And if we hear from enough folks that the CCAP policy was not effective, Naomi has the opportunity to sit at tables and advocate around that. So that's helpful for us. On the second question, it's what have you learned from your program's implementation and or performance over the last year, and what adjustments have staff made to improve the program? So in other words, this is a continuous quality improvement question. So we want to understand, I know for the after school folks, a lot of you use the YPQA or the Youth Program Quality Assessment. So what are some things that you learned from your YPQA this last year, and how are you, how did you address those this last year? Another example in the foundational reading skills, we had a partner who noticed that their completion rates for their program was only around 50%. So in other words, 50% of their kids were completing their program. And they thought maybe this was an issue and they wanted to dedicate some time to thinking about why is that and what do we need to do to increase that percentage. So there's a variety of different ways to look at data and to look at your performance. And so we're not prescribing one way of doing that, but we do want to understand what you're seeing, how are you addressing it, and things like that. So these first two questions are about this past year, looking back and doing some reflection. The third question is about looking forward and looking to the future. And we want to understand what are strategies and or activities does your program plan to implement this upcoming year, and what do you hope to accomplish with them. So again, this is another for the after school folks. If you're doing the YPQA and you just did it and you have some recommendations of how you want to tweak your program this next year, you know, that would be a great thing to include. Maybe it's you are adding another site. Maybe you are adding more staff to reduce your student-staff ratio. Maybe you're changing your curriculum. So some of this may overlap with the program implementation changes you did in the past, or be connected at the very least. But we just want to understand what your goals are, and if there's a way that we can help support you in reaching those goals, you know, we'd like to do that. You know, we'd love to, if we come out and do a site visit, come in and check in on how are those going. Can we help you troubleshoot along the way? The last one, this is what you have seen in the past. So it's provided a brief description of a program participant success story and the importance of United Way's investment in this program. So this is something that our marketing teams use with donors to help raise dollars. And if you've gone to any of our storytelling trainings, we've kind of distilled a good story into 5 pieces. So it's tied to an individual. It's tied to program outcomes. So that's great if a young person, you know, built a bicycle, but if that's not the purpose of your program, you know, we want it to be tied to the purpose of your program. We want to see either a stabilization of that individual or demonstrating a change in that individual. And then strike a balance between the head and the heart. You all are storytellers, so you know this. And then we do ask that you do change the so on this novel, it can be a couple paragraphs. Remember, reading, be kind.
If I could just make one plug for the stories, do take time to speak with your staff and maybe boards to really understand the heart of your program. They go on a story hub and they get used by so many different departments in our organization. So we just recently had a request for a story that was reported on 2015, and we want to highlight that program and agency for their good work. So it's not just about us, it's about you, and these often become really great promotional opportunities for your work. So we want to encourage you to take the time to think about a great one.
Thank you. So the next section after this narrative section is the program budget. So this is not the organizational budget, this is your program budget. And what we're asking for is what happened this past year, so your 2015-2016 actual program budget, and then your projected budget for this upcoming year. And you'll see this is the first section here is the revenue piece. This first line, Greater Twin Cities United Way, should just be your grant amount. So this shouldn't include any donor designations or initiative funding that you may receive in addition. This is just your grant amount. And then government funding, foundations, corporations, individual contributions, earned income, and then if anything else falls into the other category. And then this will automatically total for you right here. So this is the revenue piece. There is an optional program in-kind contribution if your program relies on in-kind and you track that, and that's a huge part of your program. Feel free to include it in here. Just know that it is optional, so you don't have to fill that out if you don't want to. The next part is the program expenses. For those of you in the past, we have truncated this a little bit or collapsed some of these categories. So, we don't have a separate line item for like phone or mail anymore. So it's all kind of, hopefully it should be easier to just put in those larger categories. Again, if you have questions, you can feel free to reach out to your program manager. Then there is a text box at the end that if there's any context on the budget numbers that would be helpful for us to understand, please do include that. Again, context is always helpful to us in telling the story of your budget. Any questions on your budget section? Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to move into the demographic section. This should look familiar to what you did in the application. All we're asking for is what actually happened in the 2015-2016 year. So it's total number of individuals served. So this number should match your indicator number in the beginning. Does that make sense? And then this gets broken down into different categories. So male, female, transgender, if there's another gender identity that's not listed above. And then each category does have an unknown. We know that it's hard to collect data sometimes and that there's going to be some unknown categories in a variety of these, but we do hope that you try to make those as close to zero as you possibly can. So there's age here. Oh, we have a question over here.
I'm going to probably annoy you. I'm triple confirming this. So for Learn, Lead, and Succeed, you would want to know only those youth that were at 200% or below poverty and had attended 30 times. Those are the only youth you want demographics on. That met both of those.
The demographics can be at the 200% poverty level.
But do they need to have had 30 attendances?
We don't need that for the demographics.
Demographics is just below. Okay.
Yep. And that's the same for across all goal areas.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
So for early childhood in the past, we've put the number of children and the number of parents as the total number of individuals served. Is that still what you want?
Naomi, I'm going to look to you to answer that.
I'd actually say that if you're a parenting program, you definitely want to include the parents. But if you're an early child care program, you just want to include the kids. There is going to be a section on family household income, and that's going to kind of give us an indicator as to the number of families, and that will help us inform the questions earlier on the indicators at the family level. But I would say if you're just providing child care, stick with the kids. in terms of total number of individuals served. Can I just get one clarification, Rachel, because I'm not sure I heard the answer. For the total number of individuals served, I think going back to an earlier question, we're talking about that first number of total number of served earlier, or is it just the total number of served at or below 200% poverty?
It's at or below 200% poverty. Yeah, so if I go back up, it would be this number right here. Yeah, that's a great question. At some point, our technology will catch up. But for right now, we're not there yet. Someday, we do want to auto-populate your targets in here so you can automatically compare, but we're still working on that piece too, yeah. Yeah, if you do have suggestions on what would be helpful or easier, send us an email and we can forward it to our IT staff so they can start thinking about it and making improvements for future ones. Yeah, so there's a number of age ranges here, race, ethnicity. So these are separated out like they were in the RFP. Geographic information by counties. And I do believe on our website still we do have a list of the zip codes within each county if that's helpful to you to sort that out. And then here's what Naomi was talking about. This is the unduplicated count of households served. And then the number of households and their income level. So below 100% federal poverty, in between 1 to 200%, and then above. And then we do also have an income unknown. And I will just say, I know a number of you use free and reduced lunch. And so most of you already know this, but the free lunch is at 130% and reduced lunch is at 185. So if you have kids or family that fit into there, they'll just go into this middle row here, around 1 to 200% federal poverty. Any questions on the demographic section? It looks pretty much the same as it did in the application. So we do actually have, this is going to be new. This is totally optional. These are some optional demographics, and some of these are going to apply to your area and some of them are not. So I'm assuming that for the Learn, Lead, and Succeed folks, you're not going to have very many veterans in your programs. These are just questions that we get asked a lot by different donor groups, other foundations about what are some other special populations that we're serving. And so we're just seeing if this is something that people are collecting. If you're not, that is absolutely okay. So I want to reiterate, this is optional. If you collect it and you want to provide it, fantastic. If you don't, that's absolutely okay. So these are just around veterans, identification of LGBTQ, people with a criminal background, people with disabilities, immigrants or refugees. So I know some of you collect some of this because that's who you're serving intentionally. Again, totally optional. So you'll see we also have some cultural communities as well. And then there's a little text box for the optional demographics if you want to put anything in specific around context around that piece. And then there's a larger text box around demographics if you want to give any context around the demographic piece. Yeah, we have a question.
If we don't collect it, but we know it, so we would have an estimate. Do you want the estimate, or do you just want data that's actually collected? For that?
You know, I would say if you're going to do an estimate and you want to share it, you can put it in, but just put that in the text box and say, this is an estimate, we don't collect it, you know, strictly. Naomi, what would you say?
Oh, no, I like that answer. We just actually have a question from the webinar for you to repeat an answer to something else, but I'll let this.
I might have the answer, but I don't know. I'm noticing that American Indian, and then also I just noticed that Black isn't on here either. So are those cultural groups that you don't want answers to?
I know American Indian is up in the traditional demographics box. This one is based on the Minnesota State Demographic Center that indicates which American Indians would fit into, but I think we're gonna capture that up at the top piece. Yeah, good question. And Black and African American are up at that top piece as well. Yeah, this is kind of getting specific within the Black community or within the Asian Pacific or Islander community. Yeah, good question. Got another question up here, and then we can go to the webinar one.
My question was a little bit up in the middle when you talk about the income. So for only counting that 200% poverty, how wouldn't they all fit in naturally into that category? There shouldn't be anybody outlying.
Yeah, this is your total number of households served. So you could take a step back and say, this is a little bit separate than the rest of the demographics. So this will be a different number, but we're looking for all the families you serve, not just your low-income families. Just for this household income one. Yeah, thanks for asking that.
So the question from the webinar, I believe, asked you to repeat the section on free and reduced lunch, if you could help them understand where they're plugging which proxies in.
Sure. I think most people just do free and reduced lunch, but if you do measure free lunch, that is at 130% federal poverty. And if you do just reduced lunch, it's at 185% federal poverty. So either of those could be included in that middle line. So even if you do qualify for free lunch, you might be below 100%. It's okay if you don't know that specifically. You can just put it in that 100 to 200% range, and then you can make a comment at the bottom to say, we use the proxy free and reduced lunch to measure our household income. Any other questions? Great. Just the last section here is the service delivery location. For some of you, you just have one location. That's great, so you can put that in here. If you have more than one, you'll click this button right here to add another service delivery location, and one will pop up to you. So you just do as many as you have. For those of you that are mentoring programs where your mentors may meet in the community with young people, or maybe you're a home visitor and you're going to a variety of different homes, just put your agency's main address on there, and I think we generally know who those folks are who are doing home visiting or mentoring. So we know that. For some of the scouts, I think, that have like hundreds of sites, I know sometimes you send me an Excel document separately. That's fantastic, so you can keep doing that. And then, so that's the end of this report. Again, you'll want to click Save, and then you'll click Ready to Submit, which will give you a bright red button, Ready to Submit. Tom will go through this in this video that we'll show here in a couple minutes. But once you submit it, you can't access it anymore. So if you realize, oh, I put in the wrong number, or I want to add something else, email your program manager and we can just flip that open so you can access it again. So this kind of ends the content portion of it, and we're going to show a video about the technical aspects here. So I just want to pause, see if there are any questions about the entirety of the report at this time. This is not the last time you can ask questions, obviously, so feel free to reach out to your program manager with any questions. All right, so I'm going to open up video here.
We'll run through the steps to complete your 20.
Can everybody hear this okay?
Report on the link. First, you'll want to create your reporting team, determine everyone who will need access to the link to put information into the form, make sure everyone has access. into the link, start a new report once, complete all your information, and done the report. Let's see the recommended browser. Internet Explorer definitely is going to give you the best results on the link. Chrome, Safari, Firefox will work, though you may see some strange formatting. Text boxes that don't wrap well. There are a few other things that if you do run into trouble with Chrome, Safari, Firefox, we'd recommend just trying Internet Explorer to see if your issues are resolved. If you've ever logged into the grant portal, you should have access and can either continue to use the password that you have, or if you don't know your password, on the login page there is a forgot password link that I'll point out. Otherwise, if you've never had access to the portal before, you can follow this link, request form. Quickly here from our main page, go to For Nonprofit from the top link. On the left-hand side, funding, resources for funded partners, annual reporting, and you'll see there's a request a new user account. Once you've requested a new account, look for an email from support@gtcuw.org with a subject like this. That email will contain your initial password for the site. Then you can access the website via this link, grantsproposal.unitedwaytwincities.org. Enter your email address and the password that you received to log in. And with that, take a quick tour. Right here I visited grantsproposal.unitedwaytwincities.org and entered in my username and password for this test account, and then click login. I'll also point out here that forgot username and password link if you do need to reset your password. Once I've logged in, I'm taken to the agency dashboard home page. And if we scroll down a bit, under the reporting subsites, we do see the education helping children succeed link here. Clicking that link will take us to the main page for the Helping Children Succeed RFP. This will be the same site where you completed your initial application and your indicator change forms. We scroll down the page to the bit, it should be a big orange link here to start a new report. Again, you should only need to do this one time. So this is taking us into the reporting form. To begin a new report, there's a couple steps here. First, choose the organization that you're completing the report for. Once we've done that, save your organization name. Once we've saved the organization name, the next box will become active, listing programs that you can report on. Choose the program that you would like to create a report for, and again, save that. Once you've set those two fields, create a report link. Your initial report will be saved in the library, and the rest of the report form will become visible. Under the program-specific indicators section, these indicators should be dependent on the type of program that your organization is running. If the outcomes and indicators that are displayed under this section don't look like the correct outcomes and indicators for your organization, for your grant, please contact your support desk. Just a few notes then about working in the online application. Because this is an online system, we do recommend that you save your document frequently. You don't want to have any lost work. Click the save link here. And with each successful save, you should see this pop up here saying your application has been saved. You can return to the application to continue work. If you receive an error message or if that doesn't come up, feel free to contact our support desk, and we can assist you in getting your work saved. Many organizations opt to work in an offline system like Word to draft their responses and then copy and paste them into the form, particularly for the longer narrative responses. That works well, we encourage that. One thing to point out, however, is that text boxes only allow for simple non-formatted text. So if you have things like tables, bullet lists, bolded text, things like that, that will not carry over into your report. Once you've completed all of your information, again, save one last time, then if you're ready to submit, click the Ready to Submit checkbox, and you will then see the Submit option here. Once you've submitted your document, it will be locked and not available for further edits, so make sure that you've done all your final checks and that your executive report of the responses in your report before you submit. Once you've submitted your report, you'll be taken back to the RFP main page. And if you check the annual report library, the document should be listed here with an application status of submitted. Until you've submitted your report, the status will be draft, and you can continue to click in and make modifications to your report as necessary. So just to review a few of those tips. Again, save as you go. This is an online system. Internet connections can come and go. We don't want people lose work. Feel free to copy and paste from Word, but don't count on formatting carrying over. And any registered staff person in your organization can work on the same report, but be careful that you don't have multiple staff working in the report at the same time, or you could overwrite each other's work. And to that end, we highly recommend that when you're not working on the report, close out so that your session doesn't become inactive. And again, that you don't have to then worry about losing work. Just to reiterate the potential issue of having multiple people working in the report at the same time. In this timeline here, we have Susan opening her report at 8:07. Let's say she completes the budget information here over the course of 15 minutes and then saves here. While she's working, Carl does the same report and begins working on one of the narrative questions, and he saves later on in the day. When Carl opens his report or his copy of the report, it's going to be unaware of any of Susan's changes because they've not yet been saved. So his copy is going to contain only the one response that he completed, and any of Susan's work has been overwritten. So to that end, we recommend either having changes done by one person, directing content into them for changes, or having a schedule so that you know when different people will be working on the report, and there won't be conflicts there. Lastly then, on submitting your report, make sure all of your fields are completed and you've done your internal reviews. Make sure your executive director approves of your responses, and click the submit button once. And then on the RFP site, as I pointed out, you can see the staff that submitted to verify the capture. Lastly, I'll just call attention one more time to our support desk. Feel free to contact us by email at support@gtcow.org or 612-340-7534 for any technical questions that you may have completing the application.
Concludes the technical component of annual reports. We want to thank you for taking time today to go through the whole annual reports process. And before we adjourn, we'd just like to offer up again time to answer any questions. Tulani, Rachel, Elliot, and I will all be staying here afterwards. So if you have specific questions, please do feel free to come up to us afterwards. But if you'd like, also please take the time now to ask questions that you think might be relevant to others. Any technical questions that I can try to answer? Okay, we do have one online. I'm going to channel Tom right now. And thank you for your patience around the video. This is the first time we did it, and the volume was not ideal, so thank you. And again, if you do have specific questions about the technical parts, we can answer those afterwards. Yes?
All right, here's the question. In the demographics section, the instructions say, complete the demographic information for the unduplicated count of clients served for the program with actual numbers served in previous program year, estimated for current program year, and proposed program year. Yet I only see one space for a number. Do I enter just the previous year?
Yes. You're just going to enter for the previous year. Yes. That is probably remnants from the application. Apologies. Yes, we have one question, two questions. I'm going to do a pit stop right here.
Is it possible to get a PDF of all the questions to be able to use for working in your process, or a Word document? Because I went online and noticed there wasn't one available.
Is making one that'll be on the link. So once you log into the link, it'll be available there as a PDF. Yeah. If it's not up already, he's on PTO right now, so whenever he gets back from PTO. That's why we had the video today, so yeah.
I just want to clarify, so when you're doing outcome indicator numbers in the Learn, Lead, Succeed area, you're only counting students who attended 30 days or more in those outcome indicators. What about in the foundational reading area? Are we only counting kids that attended 30 days or more in that area also?
I don't believe we have a dosage amount for the foundational reading skills area, so we can maybe have a conversation with you specifically if you want some clarity around that piece. Yeah, good question. Do you have a question, Kathy?
That kind of explained it, but I think within our grant we said the evaluation would be done on kids 75% of the time, and we're in the foundational reading, and so we'll just look at it that way then.
I do want to come back to that and just say that we strongly recommend that you either go back to your application and or your program summary form. We're asking you to report on what you had proposed originally. So look back and see what did we actually say in terms of the numbers that we were going to be reporting on, what were the evaluation tools that we said we were going to be reporting on. That should be the baseline for you to look at in terms of how to report. Does that make sense? Okay, and that all can be found on the link, your application and your program summary forms. Again, the program summary form is going to be the targets that were locked and loaded at the start of the grant period. Okay? Great, well thank you. We don't want to take any more of your time than is necessary. Thank you for your patience, and again, please feel free to reach out to us as needed. Have a wonderful last day of August.